Just walking out, you're drying off. You got us on your Google Home, your Alexa, your phone, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Tell me that you guys are not soft shower guys. You like a nice hard stream there in the shower, or do you like it to kind of dribble on you there? What do you prefer there, Mark?
Oh, yeah, I need the full-on water.
All right, there you
No
go.
dribbles.
Yeah,
for me.
likewise.
Yeah. We don't have any dribblers around here. Good. That's what I like
If
to
I
hear.
did, I'd need to call the plumbing pro.
I know. You
fix it.
would. You would. That's right. And they would take great care of you. Well, right now, you've got President Trump, amidst all the excitement yesterday with the stock markets, he signed an executive order to remove limitations on water pressure from shower heads. And he is, as they say, making showers great again. Let's go. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. Let's make those showers great again, baby. This was actually something that he did during his first administration, and then Joe Biden rolled it back. And it was all about how much water you were allowed to have come out of your shower head per minute. So this was something that Donald Trump wanted to, and he actually talked about it a couple of times on the campaign trail, and he got it done yesterday. He signed an executive order that repeals the 13,000-word regulation defining showerhead. It specifically directs the Secretary of Energy to rescind the regulation defining showerhead, a change that affects how the water flow standard is enforced and removes the current limit. That's right. So here was Donald Trump yesterday in the Oval Office signing this executive order. And standing right next to him was our old pal, Will Scharf. Will Scharf ran for Attorney General here in Missouri. He lost the primary to the incumbent Andrew Bailey last year. Well, now he's the White House secretary. He's the guy who stands next to Trump and explains the executive order. Yes, sir, here's your order to make showers great again. And then Trump has some commentary, and then he signs the little EO there.
He gets a lot of airtime.
Oh, yeah. He's I don't think a lot of people would know his name, Will Scharf, but they would know his face because he's always standing to Donald Trump's right in the Oval Office as he gets set to sign the executive order. So it's not bad. If you can't be the Attorney General in Missouri, you can be the guy that's handing Trump his executive orders and explaining to him how he's about to make showers great again. So here it was yesterday in the Oval Office.
The Biden administration launched what you called a war on showers. They had certain regulations that basically killed the water pressure of showers and other water appliances.
You can say it. Go ahead. What are the appliances?
I mean, it's everything, sir.
Sinks and toilets.
Dishwashers, toilets, sinks. But the shower heads are a
There's
huge
no
deal.
water. You don't get water. It's ridiculous.
So with this executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real deal shower head, they should have the ability. That's true.
If you buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers when no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, he says there. So that's Trump getting set to sign this executive order. Will Scharf was the first voice you heard there. He's the secretary for the White House, and he's the guy who, explains to Trump what he's about to sign, and then he hands him the big binder, and Trump signs it and shows off his signature, and everyone claps, and, away we go. So what this does is it basically takes the limits of 2.5 gallons per minute off of shower head nozzles. And that was something that came under the Obama administration. Trump relaxed those during his first term in office, and then Biden reinstituted those in the last 4 years. And Trump yesterday just whacked them. So we are making showers great again in this country. Maybe the most underrated part of Donald Trump's first 2.5 months in office is making showers great again. But, in all seriousness, why should the government tell you how much water you can use when you're taking a shower? Like, why? What would be next? How warm your water can be? How cold your water can be? As long as you're willing to pay for it, if you're open to having a massive water bill, then you know what? That's on you. It's just like the guy who, waters his lawn every single day more than he needs to. We all have that neighbor, right? He's got to have the perfect lawn. He's watering it more than 3-4 times a week because it's got to be as pristine as it possibly can be. And I'm not going to lie. I may be that guy in 30 years. I could see myself being that person. But for now, I'll make fun of that guy. As long as he's willing to pay the water bill, why is it my business? I mean, the idea that Obama and Biden thought it was a good idea to restrict how much water was coming out of a shower head in the name of lowering your utility bill and conserving water and energy resources. I didn't realize we were living in North Korea here. And Trump's like, you know what? Take a shower, take whatever you want. You got to take care of that hair, right? Yeah, I got to take care of that hair. And his hair is pretty damn good, so I understand why he's got to do it. But for the rest of us, it's like, just leave me alone. Okay, I don't need you regulating my showers. I don't need you regulating the shower heads that we're buying. I don't. If I want a lower utility bill, I know how to do that. So do most Kansas Cityans. So we'll all pump the brakes here and just relax for a couple of minutes. 913-408-7957 is the studio line and the text line on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, I have never been so proud to support Donald Trump. Oh, come on now. Come on. Oh, man. On the text line, Pete, Will Sharf is world famous. Hey, I'm just proud to see a Missouri boy get his big break. If you can't be the Attorney General of the state of Missouri, the next best thing is being the White House press secretary, explaining how it's imperative that we roll back shower head regulations. There you go. That's what it takes. 913-408-7957. Long hot showers are as American as baseball and apple pie. That's what I'm talking about. That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. I love that. Oh. Now, last night, if you missed it, let's go to CNN here for a couple of minutes. Anderson Cooper was doing a town hall with Bernie Sanders. Because, yes, if there is a lesson for the Democratic Party, it is we need more Bernie Sanders right now. It's exactly what the party needs, says nobody ever. But I guess on CNN, they think it's a good idea. So whatever. They do a little town hall with Bernie Sanders last night on CNN. And the thing that went the most viral was not about Bernie talking about, giving away other people's money, charging Elon Musk a 99% tax rate. That is not what went viral from last night. Instead, what it was this moment.
We're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party.
Anderson Cooper got gender checked, is what happened there.
She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
That right there is the party in a nutshell. That's it. Town hall, Bernie Sanders trying to figure out, hey, how do we turn this thing around? How do we get back to winning elections? And an innocent moment where Anderson Cooper is trying to show, respect for somebody in the audience who's about to ask a question, and he gets gender checked. That is a perfect encapsulation of where the party finds itself right now. Anderson Cooper, Bernie Sanders, and a fact-checking they-them in real time on live TV. And Anderson Cooper has to play along with it. Deep down, I guarantee you, he's like, you've got to be kidding me. But he can't say anything about it because then he's some kind of a phobe, right? You can't, no, don't you dare. No.
How dare you?
Don't you say anything, Anderson. You keep that to yourself, buddy. If not, you're going to get canceled. Okay? That's how the game is played. welcome to the party in 2025. The 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour we will get to coming up on KCMO. And then Steve Moore, just after 7. He is a former economic advisor to President Trump. He is on Fox. He was on CNN the other night. He will be on this show in 20 minutes on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
It's 6:50. It is a Thursday morning across Kansas City. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Let's do it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, yesterday, the markets went up nearly 3,000 points on the Dow. All the major indices had a major boost after Donald Trump announced a 90-day pause on the tariffs that were set and were going into effect, except for China. So this rollback happens yesterday. The markets, just skyrocket. Dow ended up nearly 3,000 points on the day, one of the biggest gains on a percentage basis in stock market history. Now, this morning, the Dow futures are off 500 points as of right now. So it's not like everything is just, all hunky-dory. That's not what's going on right now. But for the time being, there may be some calm in the markets till we figure out what the heck is actually going on here and whether or not these individual trade deals with these other countries are going to get solved first. And then, of course, the elephant in the room is what to do about China and how to handle China. But the markets remain story number one this week.
Number 2.
Well, this story out of Mays, Kansas, has gotten national attention, and it's a scary one. And it's one of those stories that you look at and you say to yourself as a parent, how does this happen? How does this happen? And it's one of those stories that just shocks you. So a Kansas 9-year-old was caught driving his parents' truck to school after missing the bus. Oh, this is a maze. And the police told Fox News that they received a call from a concerned citizen Wednesday morning about a driver who appeared too young to drive. A good set of eyes there on the road. The caller said the driver appeared to be 10 or 11 years old and was described to be in a white Chevy pickup. Officers were unable to find the truck, but eventually located the truck and the boy in the parking lot of his elementary school. I will give the kid this much. Knowing where to go at 9 years old, like where to turn, not only did he successfully pull this off, but he knew where to go. Now, it's Mays, Kansas. Maybe it's like 2 turns.
Yeah, he must live on a farm where he's learned how to drive. You know?
That too. But the boy told officers he missed the bus. His dad was already at work. His mom was out of town. So he took the truck to make sure he didn't miss school. You sit there and you say to yourself, what are you doing, kid? But then you're also like, that's pretty responsible. It's just, you want to be mad at him, but then it's also like, the kid wanted to be at school. He missed the bus. Dad was at work. Mom's out of town. I can't hate him for it, even though he did admittedly put people at risk on the roads. So that story has gone viral here. We'll talk more about it later this morning on KCMO.
Number 3.
Well, number 3, the wife of Weezer, the band, bassist Scott Schreiner, was shot by cops during a wild chase in Los Angeles. And then she was booked for attempted murder. California Highway Patrol, LAPD, responded to a hit and run Tuesday afternoon on a freeway winding through the Eagle Rock neighborhood of Los Angeles. 3 suspects fled the scene on foot. One bailed out of his vehicle, climbed over a freeway embankment, and ended up on a residential street. As cops scoured the area, officers went into the backyard of a house where the suspect had fled, and Scott's wife, Jillian Lauren, emerged from the couple's house next door, gun in hand. It's unclear as to whether or not she fired. Officers yelled at her to drop the weapon. Cops say that she ignored multiple commands. LAPD says that she pointed her weapon at police officers. They fired, striking her shoulder. She then ran back into the house. 30 minutes later, she would surrender to the police. She was taken to the hospital and treated for non-life-threatening gunshot wound and later booked for attempted murder. LA police say the officers recovered a 9mm handgun at the residence. You a big Weezer guy there, Mark? Was that one of your bands growing up?
Oh, yeah, I liked Weezer.
Did you ever
I met him a couple times.
Oh,
actually,
you did?
when I worked at the music station.
Did you ever meet the wife who was pointing her gun at cops the other day?
Never met the wife.
Okay.
The guys were nice, though.
But so you met this bassist, Scott Schreiner.
Yeah.
All right. Well, things you could have never predicted back in the day
Never.
when Weezer was hot on the scene. There you go. Unbelievable stuff there. Wow. All right.
Number 4.
This is a tragedy here locally. Last night in Lexington, one child was killed. A child and their father injured after a gas line explosion and fire last night in Lexington, Missouri. Police told local media the father and the child who survived are being treated at hospitals in Kansas City. The city of Lexington posted on social media last night at about 8 o'clock that a subcontractor had struck a gas line behind a funeral home, and that is what caused this explosion. Liberty Gas shut off gas to the entire city last night, and as of at least right now this morning, it has not been restored. Once it is restored in Lexington, the city is advising residents to check all pilot lights to make sure that they are in working order. And the city is advising residents to stay away from the area of where this explosion took place, and that was on 18th Street between Franklin and South. A tragedy last night in Lexington.
Number 5.
I got to go there. The Masters getting underway this morning. The first players have just teed off in the last few minutes. One of the great events of the year on the sports calendar. Just don't tell that to John Anthony. But for the rest of us, hopefully, we are excited. Masters getting underway this morning. And we'll keep tabs on it here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Number 6.
Well, we'll wrap it up here. Also on the sports scene, Xavier Worthy, Chiefs wide receiver, and ex-fiancée Tia Jones are dropping their legal cases against one another after reaching an agreement on Tuesday. So TMZ Sports first reporting this as part of the deal. The Chief star is rescinding his application for a protective order, as well as a lawsuit filed against Jones late last month, and she is pulling back her application for the permanent protective order she has been seeking against Xavier Worthy. So that one, at least for now, is in the rear view mirror. And this came, of course, after there was all that drama and the arrest of Worthy in the last few weeks that turned out, at least as it stands right now, to be a misleading accusation. Coming up next, Steve Moore is here on KCMO, former Donald Trump economic advisor. He will be joining us, talk about the markets, what happened yesterday, and what's to come today on 95.7 FM. Markets staying alive after that 3,000-point upswing yesterday. President, of course, announcing that there is a 90-day pause on tariffs on everybody except for China as they try to make some negotiating happen behind the scenes. Let's welcome on and say hello to our good friend. He is all over cable news these days. Steve Moore joining us on KCMO, former economic advisor to President Trump during 1.0. And now with Heritage, of course, also a co-founder of Unleash Prosperity. All right, Steve, take us behind the scenes. What happened yesterday?
Hey, Pete, what a great day. I can't stop smiling. And, I'd been so worried about what was happening with the market, where we saw just a week and a half of just one of the biggest bear markets ever. And then it was just around noon yesterday, Trump makes this incredible announcement that he is going to, keep with these high tariffs on China, but every other country, there will be a pause on the tariffs, 10% across the board. And the market just, went through the roof. I think it was the single best day ever for the Dow Jones in terms of, points added, and like the fifth best ever in terms of the percentage gain. So that was really, really good news. I want to make sure people realize that these tariff fights are not over. They're actually just beginning, and we'll see, what happens next. But I believe it is a 90-day pause on any new tariffs. So that was good. And look, I'm a free trade guy. I'm not a big fan of tariffs, but Trump is trying to level the playing field here. And I think in the end of the day, you don't bet against this guy. He is one of the greatest negotiators I've ever seen.
So what do you make of, I guess it would have been 2 nights ago now, that the Japanese were basically dumping bonds, and that was hurting the 10-year here in the United States.
Yeah.
How much, explain that to us in the audience, and how much of an impact that may have had on the president's decision-making yesterday?
You're right. That was happening, and so the interest rate on the 10-year Treasury went from about 3.5 to almost 4.5. That's a big increase, and let's remember that we have to issue this debt. So when the interest rate goes up, it makes our deficit worse. So that was a very troubling sign. I don't know all the particulars. You're right that the Japanese were selling. I believe the Russians and the Chinese were selling as well. Those are 2 countries, Russia and China, that are the enemies of the United States. I'm not sure why Japan, which is supposed to be friendly to the U.S., was doing that. But as soon as the announcement was made, the interest rate on those bonds started to fall again. So that's the story there. And we want to make sure those interest rates. Look, we owe $36 trillion. So every little tick up in that bond makes our deficit worse.
Mm-hmm. So now you look at where this all stands. You're right. The president wants a fair deal with China, but it seems to me, Steve, it's also the world has to come together against the Chinese Communist Party here. Right?
Yes.
And how much does that need to be part of the president's plan? It's not just about getting a deal with the EU. It's about how do we as a world come together and all of us reject what the Chinese are doing to try to, build themselves into the world superpower. What do you think that needs to look like?
Well, you're exactly right in your analysis. In fact, I made that same comment on Sean Hannity's show on Fox last night. That here's where the situation stands right now. The bad actor in the world, the enemy of freedom and free enterprise and American economic dominance is China, and they are a communist country. They're out to get us. They don't play fair. They cheat. They lie. They steal our technology, and we have to defeat them economically, because I don't want a war, but we're kind of in an economic war with China right now. They are trying to continue to raise their tariffs on the United States, and so what we need to do right now, because Trump kept the tariffs on China, is we need to unite the rest of the world, as you just said, against China. And by the way, that includes all of us. Don't buy China stuff, guy. People just look at the label. If it says made in China, I don't know about you, Pete, just don't buy it.
I do my best, but here's the thing, Steve.
I do too.
I got 3 little kids, 6 and under. 4 out of every 5 toys are made in China.
I know.
It's
well, don't
crazy.
buy them. I mean, I know it is crazy, but look, we're consumers, and just if you have to pay, $3 more for a pair of shoes, just don't buy them from China. I mean, would you buy stuff from Japan in the 1930s before they attacked, Pearl Harbor? So,
no. But as you know as well as I do. I mean, there's stuff that you don't have a choice. Like,
I know.
It's just it's crazy.
Decouple.
Yes.
Yeah, you and I think alike. So we have to decouple our economy from China. Now, the other part of this that I think is really interesting is we are going to learn in the weeks and months ahead what countries are truly our allies and which aren't.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times a week ago when the Europeans were saying, well, maybe if the U.S., if Trump is going to do this, we're going to trade with China instead. We're going to make them our trade. I'm like, really? Really? After all we've done for these countries over the last 75 years, how much? We spent $1 trillion on NATO. We've bailed out their asses in 2 world wars. And now they're going to say, oh, we're going to go with, what's America's enemy. Now, look, Trump is poked them a bit, and he's poked Canada. But I think at the end of the day, there's nothing that Trump hasn't asked these countries to do that is unreasonable. All Trump is just saying is, look, we have free trade with you. We have low tariffs. You got to lower your tariffs. We're going to raise ours on you. And that's something that is to me, it's very reasonable. And I'm a free trade guy. I want tariffs to be as low as possible. But how can we go forward? I'm so sick of these sanctimonious Brits and the Europeans say, "Oh, Trump is causing a trade war." Wait a minute, you're the ones who have tariffs higher than we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just wait till in 30 years, all of Europe is speaking Mandarin because they acquiesce to the Chinese.
Exactly. There you go. I mean, they're getting in bed with somebody I don't think they want to get in bed with here. So, in the end of the day, I think Trump's strategy will work. And he is going to, I think, effectively isolate China. China's going to have to come begging to Trump. Here's the thing. Trump understands the art of the deal. And the art of the deal is very simple, that if you have leverage over another country, you can use it. And we do have leverage over China. Now, look, we benefit from low-price stuff from China. You buy the stuff I do. We all do that. And it does reduce the inflation rate that we pay. But at what cost? And the other thing is, if we say, look, you can't have access to our markets anymore, China's economy would go into a Great Depression. They can't possibly grow. In fact, their economies, I don't know if people haven't, we're all looking at our stock market. Their stock market's fallen more than ours did, and their economy is in big trouble. So Trump is using this Trump card to get China to change its behavior. And in the end of the day, I think he's going to probably succeed.
Here's the one advantage they have, Steve. I mean, they don't have this pesky thing called democracy and elections.
That's
and, that's the one. Xi does not care how much pain he causes in his country because he's got a 100-year goal to, basically run the world. So that's the one leverage point that they have and that he has over Trump. And I don't know how... I mean, obviously, I'm pulling for him. I got his back here. But it is tough to negotiate with somebody who doesn't have to get reelected, doesn't care about elections, and doesn't care about the well-being of his own citizens.
Yeah, well, the Chinese citizens are going to have to revolt against their own government, which is, and by the way, it's very sad what's happened in China. We, by the way, just as an aside, can you explain to me, Pete, why we still have China on the most favored nation
list? That's insane. I mean, ridiculous.
It is insane. They should be the least favored nation, not the most favored nation. So we should change those. We should kick them out of the World Trade Organization. And by the way, I'll do a mea culpa here. I was in favor 20 years ago of allowing China into the WTO because they were moving in the right direction. After Mao, the greatest villain who ever walked on the planet, killed 100 million of his own people. But then they moved very aggressively towards a free market system. It was great. But then Xi comes in and he turns them into a communist country again. And so we're not dealing with the China of 20 years ago. We're dealing with a tyrant who is doing great damage to his own people.
Yeah, that's so true. Well said. Steve, thank you so much. I know you're all over the place. CNN the other night, Hannity last night. You're going a mile a minute. We appreciate you joining us in Kansas City on KCMO.
I'm not going a mile a minute. You know who's going a mile a minute?
Trump.
Trump. Nobody can keep up with this guy.
Well, you're doing your best to try to make it happen there, Steve.
Okay.
Hey, thank you, my friend.
All right. Have a great morning. Take
All
care.
right, you as well. Steve Moore on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are streaming, as always, on that KCMO Talk Radio app. Download it. Our podcasts are always on there as well, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. How do you explain a graveyard to a little kid? Then we got Mayor Lucas at 7:30 on KCMO 95.7 FM. So last hour, we talked about making showers great again. The president signed a new executive order, not limiting how many gallons per minute are coming out of that shower head. So, it's all good stuff. Now it's time to redo that shower. All right? And that's where my friends at the Plumbing Pro come into play. Steve and his team are locally owned and operated for 45 years in Kansas City. And they are offering $2,000 off and 12 months same as cash with approved credit when you tell them you want to take advantage of Pete's deal and you just want to get that new tub or shower replacement. They can be in and out in a couple of days. You'll get that locally owned and operated feel and touch from the Plumbing Pros team, and you'll have the same folks with you from the start of the project to the end of the project. So all you have to do is go to theplumbingpro.com. That's theplumbingpro.com. And let them take great care of you. Tell them you want to take advantage of Pete's deal right now. $2,000 off, 12 months, same as cash, or call them. The Plumbing Pro, 816-763-8200.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
You tell me, how do you explain a graveyard to a little kid? 724, it's great to be here on a Thursday morning on KCMO. Hey, Mark, you know that graveyard on Northgate in Olathe as you're driving down to Santa Fe, 135th on the left side? Yeah, you know it, on the east side of the road there. So we're driving down to soccer practice last night because, girls got to get ready for the big game this weekend. Got to get to 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got to keep that undefeated record going here.
Even though they don't keep score.
I know, you're right. You're right.
Just added that. Yeah.
If you're listening, Claire, they don't
Asterisk.
keep score, okay? We're not counting records around here.
And by they, we mean the league.
Yeah.
The players are certainly keeping score.
Yeah, that's right. The girls are counting these days. So we're driving by it, and she asks what all those monuments are in that field over there. And I said, it's a graveyard. It's where people get buried. And, she said, so they're dead in there. I said, yep. Now, this is a, 6-year-old, so you're trying to explain all this. And then she asks about her great-grandfather, who passed away a couple of years ago in his mid to late 80s. And she goes, is he in there? I said, well, no, he doesn't, didn't live here, so he's not buried in there. And she goes, oh, so he's got, he's got one in his hometown. And I said, well, no, he was cremated. What's that? So now you're trying to explain
Noob.
cremation to a 6-year-old. Yeah. So I'm like, how do I do this here? What am I doing? I'm like, gosh, can I get the soccer practice faster, please? I mean, I got still like 5 minutes left to get out to those fields. So I'm trying to, make my way through this conversation. Well, it's kind of like they turn the body into dust, and that way the family can, have a keepsake, and they can always see their loved one. And in this case, her great-grandmother can have the ashes of her husband of, 50, 60 years. Well, how do they turn him into dust? Oops. I'm like, well, I don't really know. I don't know how that works, to be honest. She says, well, only God can do that, right? And I'm like, well, true, but I think there's ways that they can kind of get around it. Well, no, only God can do that. It's like, it's a great question. I'll have to do some more research on that. And that's kind of where we left it before I got a couple more questions. And then I just said to myself, I don't know. How about those, Royals, huh? Jeez. Can't wait for soccer practice.
Coming up this weekend.
When it was, so he has one in his hometown. It could have just ended with, you could say that.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You got to learn those phrases.
Yeah, you're right. I
was always told, let's don't and say we did, when he would ask to do something.
There's got to be something better than me going down the road of cremation.
Yeah.
And trying to then figure that one out and explain that one. So I'm learning. Because with the first, you always try to answer the question the right way. But sometimes you get yourself into more trouble doing that.
I've got a couple of books, Pete, but I can't help you here. There's no book on doing it, Pete.
No, thank you for that, Bernie. I appreciate
just real
that
lab
one.
experience.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not sure where my girls learn this, but they hold their breath when we go by graveyards.
Oh, really? Yeah, I guess that is a thing.
Superstition, I don't know.
Superstition, sure.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to learn the hard way.
There's one down by Osceola when you go to scout camp, and every time we took the kids down there, I think it was my father-in-law or somebody, he would say, people are dying to get in there. Every time. Every year.
Well, that's a dad or grandpa joke there if I ever heard one. Well, coming up, Quinton Lucas is here. I will ask him about the jail tax that passed, and I will ask for a guarantee this jail is being built. We'll get to more on it coming up next.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Coming off of the Tuesday elections, as we talked about yesterday, you had the Kansas City Public Schools get a $500 million in infrastructure funding. And then, of course, you also had the public safety sales tax get extended for another 20 years, which will include the building of a new jail downtown. Mayor Quinton Lucas is here on KCMO. Mr. Mayor, let's start with this. You know, I had some folks who called in Monday, Tuesday, reached out and said, hey, I voted against this because there was nothing in the ballot language that said the money would be used towards a jail. So what would you say to those who are concerned about that and guaranteeing this money will be going to the building of a jail facility downtown?
So we'll just say again and again, this money will be used for a jail. We use the same ballot language question that we used in the prior two public safety sales tax votes. Anybody who had done the public work or if the media wanted to report on it, 2002, 2010, I believe, and then this year, used pretty much the exact same language. It's an infrastructure sales tax. There's Missouri state law that helps define how we lay it all out and what it is we're doing. But like everything in government, if you vote on an earnings tax, for example, each year, right, we will tell you what we're spending it on, but you don't have those specifics in the ballot language itself. It frankly allows us to do, I think, a lot more on public safety and other items. There will be a decent amount of funds that are left over beyond the jail. We've already talked to KCPD, KCFD, and others about what they're thinking about for the future of their public safety needs. This allows us to address those.
All right. So what is the process now at City Hall? You know you're going to have the money for another 20 years. What's the timeline on getting whatever it's going to require, ordinance or whatever else, to break ground on this jail?
You need somebody to build it. So right now we're already going through a request for proposal process where we're evaluating, or I think beginning our listing of potential requirements, all those sorts of things, qualifications for those who will build the jail facility itself. It will then be a process of us getting the materials, the people, we have the location, and ensuring we have that work ready to get done. I'm proud of Kansas City. I think Kansas Cityans have said for years they want safer streets, they want better schools. And most Kansas Cityans, including the Northland that had school bond issues, voted for both. And I think this means that we will be able to get moving. I know there are some, typically who tag me on social media, who say, hey, we want it built today. The city does not build jails itself. We do need somebody to work with us in terms of building it, constructing it, designing it. That work has already started in making sure we're ready on the RFP process.
Did any part of you over the last couple of days when that passed and you know, most of the city council, I think it was only one member who came out against the building of a jail downtown. Think about where we were in this town and frankly in this country about 4.5, 5 years ago when there was a push to basically not have jails, defund police. And now here we are in Kansas City, still a left of center city. And you know what? 60% of the voters said, yeah, give me that jail downtown. What does that tell you in terms of where we've gone from 4.5 years ago to today?
You know, I think it certainly there are a few interesting observations. The mayor's race in St. Louis perhaps being more aligned with kind of where people are. There you had a mayor elected 4 years ago, largely on a lot of those progressive themes. The city goes the pretty opposite direction in suggesting, well, maybe things are different. What I would say for Kansas City is this. Yes, there are a number of people. Indeed, one of the organizations that was actively opposed is decarcerate KC. I believe their viewpoint, as you could tell from their name, is that there should not be a carceral state in some ways as they see it. I don't know if that was ever quite the majority viewpoint or even a popular political viewpoint in Kansas City. Something I've said to the cows come home is that it's regrettable that Jackson County and Kansas City never came to an understanding or relationship on building that joint facility that can provide cost savings. During my time in office, which has now been a little while, I think we spent a lot of our years trying to say, how do we, frankly, come up with a better cost metric for the people of Kansas City? For any number of different reasons, I would argue intransigence from our partners at the county level, but perhaps there are other views that they see it as. We never got there. And I think that's where we spent a lot of time, maybe arguably too much, in terms of the jail issue. I don't think at any point there was ever a real confident viewpoint in Kansas City that no one would ever be arrested again for the underlying offenses at issue. There are real points that suggest that if you strangle your spouse or your girlfriend, then you should actually be tried in Jackson County Circuit Court. I appreciate the new county prosecutor that at least is suggesting that that is a change that's going to come. That's necessary. I think if you're a recidivist thief or others, frankly, that should get you to the felony level, largely in Jackson County Circuit Court. So there have been a lot more kind of internal issues than I think anyone of some real credible viewpoint saying that there should be no jails, there should be no enforcement. I think we've all wanted to say we can do better.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is here on KCMO 95.7 FM. Now, I also want to ask you, speaking of Jackson County, about something we touched on last week, but, obviously the news cycle has progressed since this point. You've got a county legislature that voted this week to comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission and roll these assessments from 2 years ago down to a maximum of 15%. You said last week the city will comply. The county, at least the executive, has not guaranteed that he will comply. So how are you supposed to, as a mayor, figure out what budgets are going to be for key institutions in the city without having any idea what these assessments are going to be from 2 years ago, never mind this year, and as a result, having no idea what the property taxes are going to be for private citizens and then also commercial properties? I mean, it just feels like a big mess when you're trying to put together a budget.
Can it just be time that our long national nightmare come to an end? And I'm suggesting it is the Jackson County property tax issue. First of all, let's just go through some steps. I have lost cases and won them, but at every level in Missouri courts and some federal courts. When we had a police funding dispute, and the Jackson County Circuit judge, by the way, said, hey, this is the way this needs to be read. City, we disagree with you. We evaluated appealing, but we complied from the moment the order was issued and continued to comply. We ultimately, for a number of reasons that I thought were valid, did not appeal that decision. But that's the way these sorts of things work, that the court speaks and then you comply. And then to the extent you have differences, right, you can litigate those going forward. I'm starting to lose understanding, frankly, of what it is that we're doing here. And yes, I know there's a right to appeal, but I would hope that if that is done, that is something that is done expeditiously, but at the same time, you have a judicial decision, one with the force of law that says, y'all got to follow these rules. And I just see it that way. I think the people of Jackson County, I'm one, 720,000 others are, I think just want some clarity once and for all for this. All of the jurisdictions, and I think about all of the others that are much smaller than my own, do want some clarity as to how we're doing collections. The schools, there are so many that are going to be an important part of this. So, I certainly hope that whatever comes out of Jackson County, it comes to some level of resolution. We have talked about this forever and a day, and I hope that ultimately the court decision, I tend to believe in what the courts have to say. I think hopefully that's followed long term.
Well, and you do have, interestingly, a bipartisan group that voted against the majority on Monday to basically comply with this Missouri State Tax Commission. So it's a fascinating time right now. But when you're trying to put together your budget, how do you do that when you, I guess, don't know how a portion of your revenues are going to look when it comes to property taxes that you collect from homeowners and businesses?
I think there's been a lot of chat about DOGE over the weeks, and I disagree strongly with how they're doing it. But yeah, it leads fundamentally to inefficiency. So think about it this way. If we're all just passing budgets kind of saying, I assume it'll all be there, then what you can end up getting in a position and often is saying that, I have to defend collecting that same high amount of dollars each time around. And then you likely are just kind of rubber stamping an ongoing continuation of the same government funds. As compared to if somebody were to tell you, all right, next year you need to figure out and do estimates that are based on a reduced share. This is what you do. You figure out what programs you may need to address, staffing issues, all those sorts of things in advance. It does not lead to responsible budgeting, and ultimately it doesn't lead to more responsible government for people in different Jackson County jurisdictions. And so I do think that this is something that is important for us to resolve. It is not merely academic, and it is not the sort of thing that I hope goes on for another year where we're talking about it all again. Look, there are a few issues, and I'm glad about this week's election. I will note this is an undefeated streak for this mayor and their team. But a few issues in our region we need to be able to stop talking about. One, Jackson County property tax collections. The court has stepped in. Hopefully there's a quick resolution. Even if it needs to be appealed immediately to the Missouri Supreme Court, I hope it's done. I hope stadiums are something that by the summer we never have to talk about again in our lives. And frankly, we've been kicking around this local jail, all the local jails issues for years. My goal is that we resolve all of these. We get to move on to new, more interesting things about how we build and grow our community. And hopefully this decision is a step in that direction.
I just picked up on something you said there. Now, undefeated streak. Now, listen, no one's going to deny you've had a very good run. You won 2 elections, but you did back the stadium tax that failed last year. So are you counting that as a loss or no?
Absolutely not. That wasn't a city issue.
I thought you might go. Okay. I got it.
When we put some on the ballot, look, there are people I've supported who've lost that issue, Kamala Harris, a lot of others. But when we put an issue on the ballot in Kansas City, or when I've been on, it has been a yes vote time and time again. It will continue to be this way because we have, I think, a good connection to the people of Kansas City, and we'll look forward to keep doing that over the years.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that part of how we are defining undefeated. Fair enough. Okay, I got you there. Now, last thing I've got for you here. You guys voted as a city council last week to reinstate $2 bus fares for most Kansas Cityans. Is this an admission that free bus fare was a failure, or is this the KCATA not knowing how to properly budget their monies?
The latter. No. So first of all, I think the zero fare transit enterprise has not been a failure. Case in point, the streetcar system continues to be zero fare. What we passed last week was a direction to evaluate the reinstitution of fares for those who can afford them, but actually continuing to provide free fares for the many people who ride our buses who cannot. So really the core of our program remains. It just means that well-heeled people like you and I perhaps still have to, will have to start paying bus fares again. I don't love it entirely, but I think this still allows us to do what we were trying to do to make sure that people who were telling each day, go get a job, go try to figure out something great in your life, have the chance to do so. But I do absolutely think, look, you got an agency running around. I mean, Pete, we have so many regional authorities and all these sorts of things where fundamentally there ends up being no accountability. And this becomes one example, right? So they're saying there's a $30 to $40 million budget gap. Fares, even at their most robust coming back, generate $10 million, if that. I think they're estimating $4 million this year. We haven't solved the problem. They haven't solved the problem. This is just kind of plucking, I think, what is the easiest to attack thing and say, yeah, maybe this is how we do it. But yeah, this kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall approach to how you balance a budget isn't the sort of thing that's going to work long term. Some of it might be getting more support from the states of Missouri or Kansas. I know there's a claim for more federal support. I have no idea why they think that's going to come through. When you look at kind of federal budget conversations now, it's a problem. And it's a problem that certainly Kansas City government is interested in trying to help solve, but we're not going to help solve all of it, which is, you need to figure out how to address a $30 million budget gap and not just kind of say, all right, yeah, maybe a few dollars from broke people in Kansas City is going to be the way we do it, because it's not. And so I hope we get that figured out, but I do have administrative concerns going forward.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO. We always appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Anything big and sexy on the agenda today that we need to be aware of?
Look, man, I'm just watching tariff policy like you are. It seems to change every day now. So I know there will be many listeners who say this has just been a brilliant strategy. I'm not sure I agree, but we're always caring about how this will impact how we do things in Kansas City, like building jails and other infrastructure, hoping the prices don't go up.
Lock in those rates when they look good. That's my only bit of advice. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
All right, there you go. That is Quinton Lucas, the mayor of Kansas City, on KCMO Talk Radio. The Dow futures off 600 points right now after that record-breaking swing yesterday to the green. Coming up, we just got some inflation data. Hey, say what you want, but there's some more good news coming. We'll get to you next on KCMO. In the meantime, let me make sure that you know about what is happening when it comes to AI in your backyard here in Kansas City. I mean, you might be sitting there and thinking to yourself, my business is not ready. I don't know how to use this. I hear about AI. Maybe you hear us talk about it here on the show. You see the news reports about it. But you think to yourself, how am I possibly going to benefit from any of this? And I get it because, the reality is it's pretty complex. But it doesn't need to be. Okay? And the reality is I've got great friends at Centric here in Kansas City who are helping you and will help you with your business get your AI strategy figured out. And that's something that a lot of people need to be looking at right now. How do we go about making sure that AI is part of our plan going forward? It has to be. Now, Centric, they've been helping the technology workforce here in Kansas City for years, but now they're also helping you and your small business with AI. And they're not looking to just get you in the door and sell you something. They want to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. They'll take you through the process, and they'll just guide you. And if you want to take advantage of their services, well, guess what? You can do it, and they'd be happy to help you. Just go to centric.com. That's centric.com/AI, CENTRIQ.com/AI.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, the world's still reacting to and digesting the massive tariff news yesterday that sent markets soaring. Coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Well, get those tickets to see Guy Benson, June 12th here in Kansas City at Boulevard. We'll be in their suite, and you can buy your tickets now for the meet and greet at KCMOTalkRadio.com. They are on sale, and they will go fast. We are keeping this event to a couple hundred folks. So get online, go to the website, kcmotalkradio.com, and buy your tickets. I'll be out there. Keatsman is, of course, going to join us as well for this special event with Guy Benson coming to Kansas City, Fox News contributor, and, of course, syndicated host here on KCMO. So we've got some inflation news. March numbers have come in below expectations. Man,
talk about a bombshell.
Let's go. 2.4% below the expectations of 2.5%. Core CPI fell to 2.8%. That is a good number as well. That excludes food and energy. And that was below the expectations of 3%. This is now 2 straight months, basically the first 2 full months of Donald Trump's tenure, that the monthly decline in headline and core CPI inflation has come in. Inflation has cooled down despite the trade war. Now, maybe this changes with April, of course, being the month when the trade war really got going. But there was also an expectation that inflation might run hot in March because a lot of businesses were basically front-loading supplies from overseas to get ahead of the tariffs. And at least as of now, maybe that wouldn't show itself in this inflation report, but at least as of now, that hasn't happened. I'm not sitting here saying everything is perfect and that this inflation number may not tick up again based on what's going on here right now, but you've got 2 full months of this guy in office, and both of these months, you have seen inflation come in below expectations. When you look at that 2.8% core CPI excluding food and energy, that is the lowest rate for core inflation since March of 2021, which was, of course, month 2 of Joe Biden's term in office. So say what you want, but right now, you're looking at some of these numbers, right? You have a jobs report last week that comes in 100,000 over expectations. Now you have inflation that comes in below expectations in some of the best numbers you've seen in about 4 years. And at some point, you got to sit there and say to yourself, well, something's working, right? For all the doom and gloom and we're all going to die and the markets are going off a cliff and recessions are coming and the whole thing, I can't predict the future. All I can do is look at the data that we've got. And the data that we have gotten, this is now the second good piece of Main Street economic news in the last week. Jobs up 100,000 over expectations on Friday, and inflation coming in below expectations, approaching that 2% number, which is the Fed's target. And once again, probably surprising some of the so-called experts. Wow. So this just came down here in the last 15 minutes or so. And right now, you got a headline CPI that's 40 basis points above the Fed's 2% target. Inflation down 60 basis points over the last 3 months alone. You know what? I mean, scream all you want. All the hysteria that you'll see on cable news and on social media. The numbers right now are looking actually pretty good. And a lot of this, I think, is tied to what's going on with energy. And also, at the very least, you look at some of the cuts that are happening in government, it's not hurting. It's just not. When jobs numbers are up and inflation is down, all this stuff about how are we ever going to survive without, a bloated federal government? Looking okay. Looking all right. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, an old tweet from the president going back over 10 years has resurfaced. We'll tell you why. Plus, we got the Alabama Lee Greenwood tickets at 8:45. Let's go back a little bit in the old tweets. What do you say? Good morning, 8:05. It is great to be here on KCMO. This resurfaced yesterday from December 29th of 2014. A very old tweet from the president, the now president of the United States. Back then, he was just a guy, I say this, just a guy on TV who happened to also be a billionaire real estate mogul, but still, here's what Donald Trump posted at 10:39 in the morning on December 29th of 2014. Quote, "Deals are my art form. Other people paint beautifully or write poetry. I like making deals, preferably big deals. That's how I get my kicks."
Such a cute soundbite.
That is a tweet that the president, then private citizen Donald Trump put up, 10 years and 4 months ago. How about that, John? Here we are.
I can give you one that frost my you-know-what from about 40 years ago, and that's the deal he made to steal Gary Barbaro from the Chiefs for the New Jersey Generals. But I digress.
Well, whether it was wheeling and dealing with the New Jersey Generals, or it was wheeling and dealing in real estate, or now wheeling and dealing on global trade, it's always been something that, as he writes here, gave him his kicks. That's how he got them. Going back now, 50 years. And yesterday, of course, you had an insane turnaround in the stock market after the president announced that he was pausing the tariffs, down to 10% for everybody except for China, who got bumped up to 125%. Now, Scott Bessent is the Treasury Secretary, and he had some interesting comments on this as to how this happened and why this happened. But first things first, this was the right move. I had his back the whole time, no matter what, but this was the right move and just a policy tweak, not a policy change, but a policy tweak. Because now the goal is going to be to get all these countries aligned, renegotiate some of these deals with the United States, and then the most important part of this is to make sure that the world is unified with the United States against the Chinese. And that's not going to be easy because most of the developed world is addicted to cheap crap from China. Let's be very clear about that. It will not be an easy task for the President of the United States, but that is the ultimate goal here. And Scott Bessent referenced that yesterday, Treasury Secretary talking about the strategy here. Here's what he said.
And all this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well. Hopefully that ends up being true. But as Scott Bessent noted there, basically, this shows China for who they are. If there was ever a doubt among some world leaders that you've got some bad actors in China, led by President Xi, how does the last week not confirm this to you? I mean, what more do you need? Now, if you just say, hey, it's worth it to me to get cheap crap from China, and, I'm willing to take the risk that they may try to basically have us all speak in Mandarin by 2050, I guess that's your prerogative. But if you have any type of long game in your body, if you're a world leader, you've got to at least admit that the path that we're on is not a healthy one. It's not a stable one, and that the Chinese Communist Party has bad intentions for more people beyond the 1.5 billion who live inside of their country, right? I mean, that's something, even you look at locally, right? Whether it's Emmanuel Cleaver, Sharice David, some of the folks who are on the other side of the aisle, they haven't really gone all in going anti-Trump on this strategy. they've been upset with Doge. I mean, Cleaver's gone nuts. He's been at these rallies. He's given these bizarre rants. I mean, he's doing all the above.
You mustard moo.
But he hasn't really gone all in against the president on things like these tariffs and trying to reestablish some of the deals that we have around the world when it comes to trade. Now, the media has done that because they just have to do everything and anything against this president.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting what your politicians do not freak out about and what they don't say. And I think there's a part of the Democratic Party deep down that agrees with this and is actually kind of playing this game of like, you know what? Trump's doing things that we haven't had the stones to do. It might actually hurt him politically, even though deep down we know it's the right thing. So from their perspective, they're like, hey, this may help us politically, but Trump's the one who's going to take all the slings and arrows.
Well, he doesn't need it politically. He's already successful. Most of these clowns need the politics to generate their wealth.
Well, that's a great point as well.
So he's excluded from that, to the point that he is a threat and has shaken up the status quo. That's why he's not liked in D.C., and therefore the media, but shaking up the gravy train and the status quo on the world stage. So, of course, Europe's going to complain.
Yeah.
They're going to have to kick up some more money here, pay for more NATO, et cetera.
Yes.
So we can always find the one guy who wants to whine and complain, and boy, the media's got a microphone for that person, don't they?
Oh, they do. They do. But locally, I just find it fascinating that for all the complaining and moaning that, Cleaver's been doing here, and Charisse to a lesser extent, they're being pretty quiet on this one. And then I found this old clip of Chuck Schumer, of course, Senate Minority Leader out of New York, and it made me realize that maybe that's because deep down, they're on board. Here's an old Chuck Schumer clip, 2017.
I tend to more agree with President Trump than I did with President Obama on Bush on trade. The whole idea for China manipulating their currency, I learned about them when I visited with Macney. I visited Crucible Steel here in Syracuse, and they were telling me back then how their steel products had an unfair advantage because China was manipulating its currency. That's how the whole issue came to the fore, because I happened to visit Crucible Steel back in 2004 or 5, sometime like that. So I hope he's really tough on China, on both North Korea, and on treating us fairly in terms of trade.
That was Chuck Schumer less than 8 years ago. I hope he's tough on China. We know they manipulate their currency. We know they screw us on trade. We know it's impacted American jobs. That's the same guy who is right now the Senate Minority Leader. I think deep down they know that he's doing the right thing. They can never admit it because, well, their friends in the media won't allow them to. But maybe I want to see the best in people or the worst, depending on how you look at it. But I'm like, you guys know this is the right thing to do. You know it deep down. You just can't help yourselves.
Well, he was patting himself on the back, and I didn't find out just because I happened to go to Syracuse.
Yeah,
I'm like, come on.
I stumbled
genius.
upon a steel mill by accident.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, Chuck, I mean, can you just...
If I hadn't gone there, I don't know what...
If I didn't end up at that steel mill because I got lost on a highway in Syracuse, New York, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you did, Chuck. And it seems like you've got some amnesia like everybody else in Congress because you forgot about that steel mill you stumbled upon in Syracuse, or you just don't care about it anymore, right? Because they're losing that working class base in their party. They've lost it because they've been too busy catering to people who want to get 7 PhDs and talk about how there's 7 genders. Like, no, come back. Come back and cater to that working class guy and gal who loves this country, who just wants to show up to work every day, make some scratch, own a home, not be in a ton of debt, live a simple but decent life. Come back to that.
Walk to the light, Carol Ann. They used to say in Poltergeist movie.
It's not bad. I'm telling you, life's good. You can join us, and then guess what? You can work. There is work to be done and deals to be made that will actually benefit your political base. That's the thing about Trump that I think gets wildly misunderstood. The media created this narrative that he's like this far-right guy. In fact, a lot of these policies were policies that Democrats were on board with as recently as just a few years ago. Trump gets his rocks off on deals, not being a political ideologue. And if you haven't figured that out by now, you got to stop watching Rachel Maddow. Or is it Chris Hayes? They look the same. I can't tell them apart. They got the same haircut. I don't know what to tell you. It's too much. I try to put on the show. I'm like, am I watching Chris Hayes or Rachel Maddow? It just depends on who's got the shorter sideburns on a given day. 913-408-7957 to join us on KCMO. We got the Alabama Lee Greenwood tickets coming up here in a half hour. You want to talk about loving America? Man, that's going to be a good one. 913-408-7957. And we still have to get to this in the hour. How does a 9-year-old in one of our two states end up driving himself to school? And should there be any kind of a punishment? We'll get to that bottom of the hour. But I know you want to chime in. I know you want to get in the mix here. We will do that next on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
A great point on the text line. You guys are on fire this morning. Happy Thursday. Thanks for joining us on 95.7 FM. Pete, the way to tell the difference when you're watching MSNBC every night between Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow is that Rachel Maddow has the Adams apple. That's a great point.
This is absolutely lit. This is lit.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well done on the that's the text of the day. We don't do anything with the text of the day, but that's got to be the text of the day right there. Oh, jeez. Market's opening up in 8 minutes. Dow is off 500 points. Good inflation news this morning, coming in at the lowest numbers in 4 years, 2.4%, below the expectations of 2.5%. The Fed's target is for 2%. So that's for March. Second straight month, this president's been in office for a full month, and the inflation numbers come in below expectations. So let's go to Tom. He's in Overland Park, 913-408-7957. Hop on board. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Tom. Hey, Pete. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I've been called much worse, so that's totally fine. What's up there, Pete? Oh, sorry, Tom.
Well, great points about China, but one thing I think that's going to force our hand in the next 20 to 30 years is that the birth rate has bottomed out, and therefore the labor replacement rate in China has bottomed out because they misestimated their labor replacement rate from the one-child policy. So this cheap labor, whether we like it or not, may be gone in 30, possibly 50 years even. So it's going to force our hand anyway. So it's best to start changing our policies now because, like it or not, the cheap labor at least may go away sooner rather than later.
Well, yeah, they got 1.5 billion people. I mean, you're right. It may be. I just think it may be later than sooner. I mean, I'm not sure any of us will be around when that does end up being a problem for the Chinese. I want to be as optimistic as you, Tom, but I think it's going to take a little longer than 30 to 50 years.
Well, it may not be a complete bottom out, but let's say 10%, 15% is an impact on the cost of labor. I mean, so, we're going to have to start looking at markets closer to home. It'd be more advantageous even if it went down or an increase of labor rate 15 to 20% for the cost of labor over there because of the labor shortage, then it's no-brainer to me is to look at labor sources closer to home and do fair trade with countries that are in our hemisphere. And especially when we see things like the Chinese trying to influence the control of the Panama Canal, that's a whole other economic issue that we haven't even really dove into is their influence in other parts of the world. So, we got to be on the right path, and it's something that has to be bipartisan.
Yeah, and it should be bipartisan. You're right about that, Tom. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. 913-408-7957. Something that, and we'll get to your calls here, something that got overlooked during all the tariff stuff over the last week or so was that Trump told Taiwan that he would he told some of the businesses that operate out of Taiwan that he would slap them with some pretty big tariffs if they did not figure out ways to make their chips and build some of the semiconductors in the U.S. Because Taiwan is an X factor in all this. So much of the growth in the AI space with these chips and whatnot are made in Taiwan. We know that China has its eyes set on Taiwan. They're, of course, someone that we have said publicly and have obviously been in a relationship with privately for years now that we would defend. If Xi wants to take this thing to the next level and he wants to really get aggressive and he goes into Taiwan, that is a major problem for the United States. And it's something that when you talk about that next potentially, I mean, that's like a worst case scenario because then what does the United States do? And that's why Trump is trying to get some of these companies and these chip makers to build semiconductors in the U.S. and get these things out of Taiwan. And it's not, meant to be an anti-Taiwan thing. It's meant to be an anti-China thing. If you've got very important manufacturing being done in a place that the Chinese have their eyes set and taken over, that's not good for foreign policy. It's not good for national security. So that part of the equation has got to be looked at as well. 913-408-7957. Mark, if we could roll that Kevin Hassett clip. Kevin Hassett is part of the administration. He's the director of the National Economic Council to the United States. He was just on Fox a few minutes ago, and here's what he said.
I think that what's been going on all along is the president recognizes that in order to get the big change that we need for America's workers, like these are really fundamental changes that we're talking about, that we need to create enough pressure on our trading partners that things that American presidents have been asking for the last decades are actually offered at the table. I can say that I was on a call with the Swiss president yesterday with President Trump. We've got a whole system set up through Susie Wiles and the cabinet secretaries that we're starting to have a meeting today after lunch where we prioritize our allies and other countries and decide who or when is going to visit and when. But I can tell you that the amount of stuff that's coming to the table came up really a lot, long before the market movements this week. And so it was looking like that there had been enough action to get us to the point where we should really genuinely start negotiating. And if you go back and look, you can see the negotiation signals were out there already, even on that Monday where somebody made a fake tweet that suddenly said that I was saying something that ended up being kind of mostly true on Wednesday. And so anyway, I think that everything was moving forward in an orderly fashion, and there's no doubt that the Treasury market yesterday made it so that the decision that it's about time to move was made, I think, with perhaps a little more urgency, but it was going to happen at any moment anyway.
That was Kevin Hassett, National Economic Council Director on CNBC, not Fox, this morning here on KCMO. And he said it loud and clear. What's been going on all along, the president recognizes that in order to get the big change that we need for America's workers, we need to create pressure on our trading partners. Most importantly, and obviously at the top of the list, is China. Coming up, what would you do if your 9-year-old got behind the wheel of a car? That happened in Kansas. We'll tell you the story, and we'll get your reaction next.
KCMO, Kansas City's place to talk on 95.7 FM and 710 AM, a Cumulus media station.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, the world's still reacting to and digesting the massive tariff news yesterday that sent markets soaring. Coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
Buy those tickets now, KCMOTalkRadio.com. The first 140 days of President number 47. Guy Benson coming to Kansas City. Will be at Boulevard Brewing for a private event, meet and greet, dinner, drinks, the whole deal. Buy the tickets now. We're in just week number 1 of sales, but they are moving quickly. KCMOTalkRadio.com. All right, what do you do if your 9-year-old decides he's going to drive to school? That is what happened down in Mays, Kansas, just outside of Wichita this week. And it got national news. In fact, I saw it first on Fox News. A 9-year-old boy took matters into his own hands. He missed the bus. Dad was at work. Mom was out of town. And he decides he's going to get in the car and drive himself to school. He was in a white Chevy pickup, and he actually got to the elementary school parking lot, A-OK. But on the way there, somebody called the police and said, yeah, there looks to be like a kid driving a car, so we got a problem here. And by the time the cops got him, he was already at school. And the reason he did this is because, well, mom wasn't home and dad wasn't home, and he missed the bus. So he said, all right, got to get myself to school. What do I do? I'm sitting there and I'm like, as a parent, there's a part of you that has to be proud, right? I mean, would you at 9 years old? I mean, maybe you would have walked. Maybe. You would have been like, oh, gosh, now I got to walk 3 miles to school. It's uphill both ways. What do I do? This kid's like, yeah, I'm just going to get in the car and go. Now, he's got to be a big 9-year-old, because how many 9-year-olds could actually reach the pedal, the brake, and also look over the steering wheel at the same time? That in and of itself is something where I'm sitting there and saying to myself, what? He's got to be a pretty big kid. That's number one. But then number two, he's just like, I got this. There's some swagger there that I respect, John, from the kid.
Well, number three, there was a room party and they were serving cake. So at 9 years old,
didn't want to miss
cake.
out.
Yeah,
exactly right. So I'm like looking at the story and I'm saying, man, you can't praise the kid for at 9 years old getting into a car and driving it to school, because it's illegal, number one. And also, he put a lot of people at risk. Now, would you take the 9-year-old who's definitely white-knuckling that thing versus the 16 or 17-year-old who's texting while driving, who's like, I got this, don't worry? That may be a point to bring up. Not going to take that one away from you. But then there's a proud parent moment where you say, oh, my son missed the bus, and he's like, I got to go to school. I'm not going to sit home and just, blow off school. Whoops, missed the bus. Too bad for me. He's like, I've got a responsibility to get to that classroom. I got to be there. I got to learn. And that's one thing I look at and I say, it's a weird deal as a parent. And I know that these moments will come up. I mean, my kids are little, so I don't have to worry about Claire driving to school for at least a couple more years, like a lot more years, hopefully. But at 6, she's 3 years away from being 9. I can't even fathom it. But you know what? This is also, I know, part of how life is in other parts of the state, more rural parts of the state, where kids are, driving vehicles on the farm and things like that. 913-408-7957. Susie in Blue Springs. Hey, Susie, good morning. You're on KCMO.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, I have 6 kids, and my first 5 all knew how to drive, and they have taken the car when they weren't supposed to, but they all knew how to drive by 9 or 10.
So by 9 or 10, I'm genuinely curious. Did you have like a booster? Like, how did they see over the steering wheel in a regular pickup truck?
Tall enough. They were tall enough. When they were little, like 5, 6, they'd sit on my lap, and I'd do the pedals and they'd do the steering, because by the time they were ready to drive, all they had to do was learn how to react to other drivers.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they got their license. So they knew how to drive the car. But my last kid, she came along 11 years later, and we were living in the city. I had to make her get her license at 19.
Wow.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
I'm having to make my grandkids get their licenses at 17, 18, 19 years old. I'm
And
taking them driving and training them.
what? Hey, you got to get there. You got to give their parents a hard time.
Oh, they say I don't yell as much as their parents.
Well, why aren't the
really
parents?
even
Why
like
aren't the
training.
parents dragging them out to get the license? Why are you doing that as grandma?
Because parents work and grandma's always got to go pick them up for stuff. So I figured I'm not doing this forever. Y'all going to get a license.
There you go. I like that, Susie. That's a good approach. So your older 5 were all driving or able to drive vehicles by 9 or 10. Did any of them? And you said some of them did take the car when they should not have taken the car.
Oh, yeah. One of my daughters at 14 took the car, ran into the side of Quick Trip, brought the car home. I had knee surgery, so my 16-year-old was driving me around, and I blamed her, and she got blamed for that car not running right for like 5 years until they finally let me know what happened.
Oh, man. Oh, God. She
Yeah.
drove into the side of Quick Trip?
Yeah, she got up to Quick Trip, was like half a mile from the house, and accidentally hit the gas instead of brake and bumped the side of Quick Trip.
There was no, police report. Quick Trip was cool with it, I guess?
I don't think they knew. I think she pulled right back out and went home.
Gotcha. All right, Susie. Hey, thanks for that. I appreciate you.
No problem.
913-408-7957.
That's right, Pete. The motor was still running and reverse worked. We're out of here.
Yeah. Let's get out of Dodge. Get that K-turn going. All right. That's pretty good stuff. That's exactly the caller I was looking for in that spot. And that's why I know a lot of you are nodding your heads right now and saying, yeah, that's me, or that's my kids, or that was me growing up. And that's why this kid in Mays, nothing happened to him. Nothing. The police didn't write any citations. And the police officer, Officer Blackburn, down in Mays, Kansas, said that he's sure that the young man is in tons of trouble with his parents, and they will let the parents determine how to handle this one.
There's country justice.
Exactly. And that's why, I can't be mad at this. I just can't.
Now, up here in the city, if he'd have tried that, they would have busted him for not having a parking lot sticker and parking in the faculty parking lot, probably.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I'm just curious about his motivation. What possessed him to think, okay, I've got to get there?
Yeah.
At 9.
At 9. And part of you thinks, hey, he's just a good kid. The other part of you thinks what John said. It was cake day. They didn't want to miss out.
A little bit more to it.
Exactly right.
I'm just curious.
With security these days, he had to get there before school started. Otherwise, trying to get into the school late wouldn't have happened. They would have been like, why is he showing up by himself? So
yeah.
He was probably thinking about that too.
Imagine driving down 435 this morning and you look over and there's a 9-year-old driving the vehicle. I mean, I saw a lot of stuff when I was in Northwest Oklahoma that was very rural. And there were certainly some things in cars that surprised you, usually related to, a drink of choice. But that would be one where I would do a double take, seeing a 9-year-old.
We used to like to miss the bus on purpose and walk, and it was about 3 miles from Martin City to Grandview. But you could walk it on not on busy streets, back roads, right? And we'd show up as if it were a noble gesture on our part. We get school at 10:30. Where you been? Well, we missed the bus, but we walked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did our job.
Plenty of things to do on the way, P.S.
Yeah. Took you 2 hours to walk 3 miles back in the day. Must have been some uphill walk you had there, John.
Both ways.
Yep. Oh, my goodness. 913-408-7957, our studio line and our text line on KCMO. And in an era when we talk about how 30-year-old grown men are living in mom's basement and not working.
Touche.
That's where I'm not coming around. I'm being mad at the kid here. Because this is the kind of problem that we would like to have culturally in this country. The cultural problem we want to have is kids taking too much responsibility, taking too much into their own hands and saying, I got this. Because the problem we have right now is the complete opposite of that, and it's destroying us as a country and culturally when you got, 7 million able-bodied men who are just not in the workforce right now because they feel like they don't have to do anything.
I got to show this story to Brielle later today and be like, hey, this weekend you're driving to soccer. You gotta take the keys this weekend.
Well, she's what, 12?
Yeah, she's driving herself to work.
Yeah, that's right.
She's reffing, so.
You can she do that or no?
No, she can't drive.
When's she able to do that? 15, she can drive herself?
I think maybe 14 in Kansas. I need to look up the rules.
Well, you should probably look
Supposed to
that
have
up.
a permit. I think at 14, somebody's supposed to be with you.
You got to get that going there, Mark. You know,
She has driven on the farm, though.
Okay.
So she has a little experience.
Up in Iowa?
Yep.
All right. She's got a little experience. That's good. That's good. I mean, my girls, they're dying to get behind the wheel. Right now, all they got is their little Elsa truck. They drive around the driveway in loops and circles. And until that they can keep that thing off the grass that I'm pristinely trying to keep up, I can't let them behind the wheel of a vehicle. You keep that thing on the driveway, we'll have a conversation. All right? But as long as that Elsa truck is doing wheelies in the grass that Dad's trying to make look halfway decent, then I can't put you behind the wheel.
And it's like you said, some kids in this generation don't want to drive. Like one of my nephews didn't get his license till he turned 18. My other one wanted to drive right away when he was 15. So it's kind of like, depends on the kid too.
Every kid's different. That's one thing I'm also learning with 6, 4, and 1 at home. Everyone's different. And you're like, how's this possible? They're all being raised the same. Such is life. It's 8:45. It's great to be here on KCMO. Coming up, this guy's getting a lot of attention. This Barstool founder, Dave Portnoy. The guy's lost his shirt in the markets the last few days, and now apparently he's just like willy-nilly willing to change his politics over it. I don't understand it, and I'll play the audio on this front next on KCMO 95.7 FM. In the meantime, you're sitting there right now and you're thinking to yourself, man, I got Mother's Day coming up. I got to get engaged here. I got to get moving. I'm getting pressured. Well, where are you going? I hope you'll go to Diamonds Direct right there at 119th and Row. I've been there, more times than I can count. And that's because they take great care of you. They got white glove service, everything you would expect from a jewelry store, but there are no pushy salespeople. They want to know your budget. They'll work within that budget, and they'll make sure you get the best bang for your buck once you're in there. So whether it's the engagement ring, the Mother's Day gift, that graduation sparkle, they've got it all. And, of course, they do free cleanings and lifetime upgrades as well. Diamonds Direct. Go tell them that we sent you here at KCMO. Angie and her team will take great care of you, and you will get exactly what you're looking for this year for the engagement, the anniversary, something for mom or the graduate. Head on over to 119th and Row or start shopping at diamondsdirect.com. Oh, Big Lou jumped the gun on me there. Come on, buddy. All right. It is time for the Alabama Lee Greenwood tickets. We'll give those away right now. 7th caller will be at Azura Amphitheater Friday, May 23rd, 913-408-7957. 7th caller, 913-408-7957. Head on out to Azura Amphitheater next month, Friday, May 23rd, and win those Lee Greenwood, Alabama tickets, courtesy of 95.7 FM KCMO.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM.
Who won the second to last pair of Alabama Lee Greenwood tickets?
Jeff Keel in Blue Springs was excited to win, be number 7 this time.
All right. Attaboy there, Jeff. Well done, buddy. We'll get one more winner tomorrow. And, Mark, you've been bumping some Alabama once in a while back this week, but tomorrow we got to get old Lee in the mix, all right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Tomorrow, let's remember that. Lee Greenwood coming back when we announce our winner.
I think I know the perfect song to use.
I think it's the only song. Does he have any other songs?
Yeah.
He does? Okay.
Yes,
There's a whole album there.
Oh, there is. All right.
He did perform at our 4th of July party a couple of years ago. And
That's right.
He was supposed to do a whole set, but there was some weather, and so he only got to play one song, and we all know what song he did play.
I think that Lee should just play God Bless the USA like 3 times. Just play it over and over and over again, and you know what? I think that people will be happy.
I went to a Neil Diamond show, and my least favorite song never ended. He'd get right to the end of one more time. And it was Forever in Blue Jeans. And that's one of the most trite Neil Diamond songs of all time.
It wasn't Sweet Caroline. I thought that's what you were
that's a
gonna say.
great one. I could have, keep going on that. Make that an hour long. We can do that.
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to say. No. John likes to play contrarian sometimes. I thought he was going to be a Sweet Caroline hater. I'm glad you're not.
Baby walks, one more time. Everybody starts cheering. I'm like, no. I'm the one guy. And put me up on the scoreboard.
No. Oh, it's like the guy in the Kiss Cam who's like, no, pulls back. Oh, man. Well, Dave Portnoy is the founder of Barstool Sports. And, you probably see him once in a while. He pops on cable news every so often. And he's a Trump voter, but he's not super Trumpy or MAGA. But, listen, he draws views, he draws eyeballs. He, to his credit, built a monster business with Barstool Sports, sold it off, made hundreds of millions of dollars, and he still has a huge following. So he's good for TV, he's good for media. So he goes on CNN yesterday and he complains about Donald Trump and the markets. This is obviously before the big upswing. And that's because a couple of days ago, he was on his own social media platforms bemoaning the markets and how he's lost, in his estimations, 15 to 20% of his net worth over the last few days. Now, that's on him. He's a gambler. He's placing bets. He started this during COVID when there were no sports. He started filming himself basically playing the markets. He was gambling. He called himself Davey Day Trader, I think was his nickname. Very cute there, Dave. I guess when you're most interested in late teenage, early 20-year-old women, when you're in your mid to late 40s, I guess giving yourself a cute nickname like Davey Day Trader is the way to go. So he's bemoaning the market. So, of course, CNN is like, let's get this guy on the air. Because, yes, as much as I respect what he built with Barstool Sports, a guy who's worth hundreds of millions of dollars is not exactly the relatable figure that you want right now if you're looking to have this moment hurt Donald Trump politically. So here he was yesterday, Dana Bash on CNN.
You have talked about the midterms a lot and about the fact that Democrats could or maybe should win big if we are where we are then, which is a very big if. Could you see yourself supporting Democrats?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing about me, which drives me crazy, I vote for Trump. I support him. I was never some crazy MAGA guy. I look at each candidate and I choose who I like. I think the left and a lot of even what they did with, I want to say, hiding Biden's mental state and not having a primary really drove me to the right. So I am not somebody who would just strictly vote based on Republican or Democrat. I vote on the people running, how I think they speak to me, the issues that are important to me. But yes, I will vote how I feel is the best interest of what I believe in.
The issues that are important to me, and he claims the most important issue was that Democrats hid Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. I mean, come on. If you were driven to the right this last election, the way that Biden was handled by his own political party would theoretically just be the cherry on top. There's no way that was the issue. It wasn't, spending trillions of dollars that we don't have to goose the markets, cause inflation and create a lot of pain for regular folks. It wasn't that. It wasn't like, hey, can we just admit that there's two genders? It wasn't like, hey, I don't want men and women's sports. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't 13 dead Americans in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was Joe Biden's mental decline and the cover-up that drove you to Trump. His reasoning doesn't make sense. He's like an emotional teenager because he lost a lot of money in the markets the last week. Instead of just sitting there and saying, I should probably sit this one out because I'm gambling, he chose to lose 15 to 20% of his net worth. How am I supposed to feel bad for that, John?
I was thinking of this. We talk about how the Democrats always tip off their things, so they were screaming democracy is a threat.
Yeah.
We reverse engineer, and we now understand you mean by having an incompetent president.
Yeah.
That's what. So they like to trump that out and then point it at Trump. I'm like, wait a minute. Let's reflect inward here for a second.
Let's look in the mirror. Let's look in the mirror.
We find out now.
Mm-hmm. Ain't that the truth? The markets are down this morning despite some very good economic news. Dow is off 800 points in the first half hour of trading. NASDAQ off 500. So the roller coaster ride, well, it's continuing. But the administration is reacting very positively to some big news this morning. We'll tell you what they're saying and what happened next on 95.7 FM. Well, the market sell-off is happening today after the massive gain yesterday. Dow closing up nearly 3,000 points, the most points on record. But this morning, Dow's opening up off about 800, NASDAQ's down 600, and the S&P also in line with those two, down about 3% so far in early trading. But the good news is this. Inflation came in below expectations this morning for the month of March. So this is something that came as a bit of a surprise in the early morning hours. At about 7:30, this dropped. Inflation rate came down to 2.4%, below the expectations of 2.5%. And when you take out food and energy, so-called core inflation ran at 2.8%. And that is the lowest rate for core inflation since March of 2021. What more do you need when it comes to evidence and data to suggest blowing out the budget, blowing out the deficit, printing money, and making the dollar less valuable and growing government is an utter failure for the majority of Americans who are not working in the government? So annual inflation was reaccelerating from September through January. But the last 2 months in office, or the last 2 months during Donald Trump's first 2 full months in office, you have seen those numbers come down, wiping out the increases that came from September through January. It's almost like all we needed was a new president.
Such a nice man.
It's almost like that's what we needed just to try to get things back on track. Now, I understand there's a lot of chaos and uncertainty in the markets. We've talked a lot about what that's going to look like and why that's happening right now as we try to reestablish not just our trade deals with the entire world, but most importantly, the relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. And the goal here for the president of the United States should be a very simple one. Cut good deals and fair deals with our allies around the world, and then create and make sure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to doing what needs to be done to decouple all of our economies from China, or at least have far less reliance on China when it comes to our economies, not just here in the United States, but frankly around the rest of the world. Like that's what needs to be top of mind right now. So you also saw that when it comes to real average weekly earnings, that number has gone up the last 2 months. That's something that we have not seen over the last few years. Under the last administration, average Americans' weekly paychecks, when adjusted for inflation, fell by 4% under President Biden. You now have seen those numbers grow each of the first 2 months under President Trump. Now, I know this is going to shock you, but I just went to Kansas City Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver's X page, and while he has been X-posting this morning, he has not put anything up about these inflation numbers. The only thing that he posted this morning is, quote, as global temperatures continue to rise. Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. As global temperatures continue to rise, it's imperative that Congress provide families with innovative ways to beat the heat and lower energy costs. He has introduced the Cool Roof Rebate Act. That sounds like one of his specials from his car wash days. The Cool Roof Rebate Act. With a couple other Congress members, one out of North Carolina and another one out of California, to do just that. Why is it somebody, please tell Emmanuel Cleaver, every time you guys get more involved in anything, the price of that anything seems to go up. Just like Obamacare was going to lower all of our health insurance prices. I don't know about you. I see mine. I see what's taken out of my paycheck every other week, and it's not my company's fault. It's the fact that the rates continue to go up because the sector of healthcare is out of control. But more government was supposed to lower all our prices. What happened to that? Oh, you mean it doesn't work that way?
I got this cool website.
I know. Healthcare.gov.
That rollout, gee, Merry Christmas.
So this is now, Cleaver is very proud of the fact that he has introduced the Cool Roof Rebate Act. Legislation to create a rebate program for reflective roofing products to lower home temperatures and reduce energy consumption and costs. Anytime you guys say, I'm here from the government and I'm going to reduce your costs, the opposite seems to happen here, John.
Meanwhile, back home in his district, residents are being displaced from their home by the county taxes. So
Yeah,
that's if you can afford your roof, you can get a rebate.
How about he gets his butt back here and talks to his buddy Frank White?
A little bit of help.
And tells him to stop screwing the Jackson County homeowner. I'm telling you right now, you talk to any Jackson County homeowner, they're much more concerned about their property taxes than they are their air conditioning bill. And on top of that, guess what? The president is working on those energy prices, working on reducing those energy prices. That's happening right now. You look at some of the data that's out there. We've seen in this latest inflation report that came out this morning, 2.4% decrease in energy prices, 6.3% decrease in gas prices, 1.4% growth in real average hourly earnings, 2% decrease in prescription drug prices, and a continued slowing of egg prices. America is back. Inflation is not. That's how you reduce the prices for people. You deregulate and you create a favorable climate for more supply of whatever it is you're trying to reduce the price of, in this case, energy, and magically it happens. It doesn't take some government bill with a cute little name from Emmanuel Cleaver like the Cool Rebate Act to get energy prices down. It doesn't. I get it sounds good on paper. It maybe looks good because what they do is they say, I'm from the government. I have a bill to help you. The other approach, the approach that actually works is, you know what? I'm going to let business help you, and I'm going to create a climate and a business environment that rewards them for helping you, rewards them by lowering your prices, allows them to supply more services or supply more goods, which in a supply and demand world naturally brings down prices, not the government artificially doing it. And that is so difficult for people from a business perspective when all they've done in their lives is go belly up on car washes when it comes to like actual business in their professional lives. It's difficult for folks like that to really understand this concept. And I'm sorry, Mr. Cleaver. I'm sorry if that's a little too rough, but let's be honest. I mean, that's the reality here. That's it when it comes to any private sector experience. You can call me whatever you want.
You mustard
You call me whatever you want. I don't care. Those are the facts. 913-408-7957. I mean, these are very good numbers this morning. And Trump did post on his Truth Social here 33 minutes ago, just out, all caps, inflation is down. That's what he put up here on social media just a half hour ago. So when you actually look at some of the things happening on Main Street right now, yes, the tariffs are a concern. I'm not saying it's all a utopia today, but there are things that, frankly, are not going to get as much attention today in the news cycle because everyone's just looking at like the NASDAQ when there are signs that for Main Street, things are absolutely improving. And I'm not about hurting Wall Street to help Main Street. It's not either or. You can have an economy, and we saw it during, Trump 1.0, where Main Street does well, average hourly earnings go up. The folks who make less money actually gain more than those in the higher end. That happened during Trump's first term in office. Wages for the lowest end of the socioeconomic spectrum actually gained more on a percentage basis than those at the higher end. And then Wall Street also can kick butt in the process. It's not an either-or proposition. Never has been. 913-408-7957. Join us in the 9 o'clock hour on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. There was a great feel-good moment yesterday ahead of one of the biggest events of the week. I will share it with you and tell you about it next on KCMO.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
The president is holding a cabinet meeting here shortly, so if anything comes out of that, we'll bring it to you, or you will hear it on Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled coming up at 10 o'clock. So the Masters are underway this morning, and yesterday there was a really awesome moment that if you haven't seen it, I can't really play it for you. I mean, I could, but there's no point. Where Rory McIlroy has a little daughter. She looks like she's about 2 or 3 years old. And the day before the Masters begin, they do this like par 3 tournament. You know, the wives are out there, they'll caddy, the kids are involved. It's a nice event. It's really cool. I actually think they should do more of that in golf in general, but it's kind of a staple during Masters week. And Rory McIlroy's daughter is out there on the green, and she ends up putting what is like a 20 to 25-foot putt. And she's not even set up properly. She's not really holding the putter correctly.
It'll look good to me.
Of course,
you know how
it
much
does.
I golf.
Yeah, says the guy who last picked up a club in 1972.
Well, that's because it was in my way.
I know.
Didn't want to trip over it.
So she picks it up, and she kind of half swings this putter, and the ball's barely moving, which shows you how fast those greens are there in Augusta. Like, it didn't look like it was going to get halfway to the hole.
I didn't think it was. I watched the video, and I thought, oh, well, this is going to be disappointing.
Yeah, it's a downhill putt, but still, man, that thing got about a third of the way to the hole, and it just started moving. It was booking downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes in, and the crowd roars. And you can see it because, you know, she's 2, 3 maybe. I mean, she's a little kid. And she is just, in the moment, I think it was too much for her. She looked overwhelmed by the moment because another little girl, must have been one of the kids of, another golfer, runs out on the green and gives her a hug. And Rory's like picking her up and the whole thing.
I think it was her sister.
Was it?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I was looking at his Wikipedia here, and it says he only has 1 kid. So I'm just going based off of
the
that.
other girl had a little McElroy on the back
Oh,
of her
did
thing,
she?
though, I think.
Okay.
Pretty
All right.
sure.
Well, hey,
watch that again.
I won't take Wikipedia at its word. That's fine.
The woman could be a cousin.
Yeah. Either way. Yeah, could be. Could be. But I look at it, and I said to myself, wow. That is a super cool moment. Yeah, they have 1 kid, Poppy, born in 2000. So, all right, she's 4 years old, probably, maybe 5, but yeah, 4 years old. And she sunk this putt, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I see the other girl didn't say McElroy. I thought it did, just because they had the same look.
Okay, we got it. So Rory McIlroy's 4-year-old daughter hits this putt, and it is just fantastic. And the Masters are underway right now. When you look at the leaderboard, you've got a bunch of golfers at 2 under right now. Brian Harmon, who won last week, the Valero Open, he's sitting there at 2 under. You know, I've often said, and I said this last week, you know, no one plays the tournaments before the majors because they all want to warm up for the big tournament. And this guy, Brian Harmon, he's, you know, if you're a golf fan, you know the name. If you're a casual fan, you probably don't. He won this tournament last week. He had not had a great season. He made $1.7 million to win it. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm saying to myself, all these top players that take off the week before the big tournaments, I would be playing in all those. Because if you can clear $1.7 million against a less talented field of golfers, why wouldn't you do that? It's a $9 million purse last week, and, you know, for the most part, the big names aren't going to play in it, which means you've got a better chance to make a lot of money. The runner-up last week, a guy I've never heard of, Ryan Gerard, made $1 million. The guys in third place, Maverick McNeely and Andrew Novak, who I also don't know, made $560,000. Because none of the big dogs were playing last week, they were all prepping for the Masters. And now you go into the Masters with a hot hand. Even if you haven't really played the course, you got a hot hand. And Brian Harmon's 2 under through 4 holes. Tied for first place. It's very early, I know, but it's that's pretty cool. That's a no-brainer to me. So that moment, I'll post it up on X. Mark, maybe you could share that on the KCMO social media pages on Twitter and Facebook so people can see it there as well. Because that's just if you're a parent, it's kind of a feel-good thing to watch and see unfold. I took Claire golfing once last year I guess she was 4 years old as well. Let's just put it this way. She was not Poppy McElroy draining 25-foot putts, even though Poppy got lucky, you can tell, on that big stripe. So as we roll through the morning, Kevin Keatsman's coming up at 10 o'clock on KCMO. You know, there was this moment from last night on Anderson Cooper's show that really, I think, was a perfect encapsulation of where the Democratic Party finds itself right now. They're doing a town hall with Bernie Sanders, a washed-up socialist who has no business being part of the future of their party if they've learned anything from the last couple of election cycles. Anderson Cooper's on there on a network that has largely failed the last couple of years. And coming out of the commercial break, this person asks this question, which is very ironic to me.
We're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party.
So this is perfect. This individual gets called on by Anderson Cooper. Anderson Cooper then gets gender checked by this person. Sir, it's they, them. And then asks a question about why men are fleeing the Democratic Party. Geez, I can't imagine why, lady, or dude, or they, them, or whatever.
What should we do as guys? Can you say your handicap or your bench press or something? Hi, John Anthony, 325. Or something. Silly.
Did you ever have a 3 1/4 bench press, John? That's pretty impressive if you did.
Well, me and my brother one time when we moved him to the attic.
I mean, how is that not the perfect encapsulation of where this party finds itself? Chick fact checks Anderson Cooper, calls herself a they, them, and then says, why are the dudes leaving the party? Would you look in the mirror? And then maybe you can find your answer. I mean, that is just right there. If they want to know why they have lost red-blooded American men at a record pace over the last few years, that right there is why. And, of course, Anderson Cooper can't say anything about it. He's just got to take it because, God forbid, then you're like a genderphobe or something. If you're like, sorry, dude. Oh, sorry, ma'am. What do you even say? What's a they, them? What do you say? How do you, refer to them when it comes to sorry person? You tell me. I don't know. I don't know these rules. I can't keep up with them anymore. I just can't. Our caller of the day on our topic of the day is going to be coming up here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Normalize the bulge. We are normalizing the bulge.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
$9:35 as we take you till 10 o'clock. Kevin Keatsman Uncanceled is coming up then on KCMO 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app as always. So I just can't get enough of it, man. I really can't.
We're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They, them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party.
Why are men leaving us? Anderson, it's they, them. Okay.
She's a real beauty.
Oh, sorry. I can't say that.
He's a nut job.
Can't say that either. I don't know. She, he, well, I don't know. Ashley, you're on KCMO in Kansas City. What's up, Ashley?
Hey, I can tell you why men are leaving the Democratic Party, because I see it with my 17 and 18-year-old boys, because the men have been vilified by these militant women my age, 46 years old, and told that they're evil just because they're men, and they're sick of it. My 18-year-old son voted for Donald Trump in the election and was told by his African-American father he was a racist for it. And he stood on his principles, and that is what he is going to continue to do. He has told me he watches all kinds of media so that he gets opinions from every single viewpoint, and he is making up his own mind, and I am as proud of him as I can be for making his own viewpoint and for making these decisions on his own. But he will not be vilified just because he's a male anymore.
Ashley, that is fantastic. Wow. And did you say his own father had vilified him for voting for Trump?
Told him that he was a racist. His father is a black male.
And this was your
and told him he was racist.
So your ex.
Yeah, my ex-husband.
Wow.
Yep,
Well,
was kicked out of his house, not allowed to go to Christmas because
oh
of
my
it.
goodness.
This is an 18-year-old with autism and ADHD and horrible anxiety issues.
I'm sorry about that, but hey, standing on his principles, he's learning a good lesson at a relatively young age. And I hope you got KCMO on in the car when you're in the car together.
We sure do. We listen to KCMO, and that's his one of his choices for media so that he can hear his viewpoints that he likes.
There you go. Well, Ashley, thank you very much for that.
Of course. Bye.
Should we do something we've never done and just say that's our caller of the day right there?
If you like, it's your show, brother. We're into year 8.
Well, I don't know. That was so good. I don't know if I can follow that up with a caller of the day that's not as good as Ashley's call, to be totally honest.
Well, that is the goal. It's to make it the best call of the day.
I mean, Ashley just kicked ass, took some names and dropped the mic. I don't know how to top that. I mean, I would feel bad for the caller.
It would be anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It would be.
It would be anticlimactic to play a caller of the day who, frankly, can't hold a candle to Ashley. And because I'm not going to name who that person is, I'm not trying to, insult them on the air here because we're not going to play their call, so no one's going to know who the caller of the day would have been because it's Ashley. Okay? Executive decision.
So we're doing all Metro things now around Kansas City, so we'll have honorable mention caller of the day. How's that?
Yeah, that's true. Second team caller of the day, third team caller of the day,
Something like
honorable
that,
mention caller of the day.
Yeah.
We could do that way like college sports does it. I'm fine with that. But I can't play a caller after Ashley. That was amazing. That was tremendous. So we'll just do it like executive action and executive order. And I will say that Ashley is the caller of the day. And John can be my Will Scharf, where he hands me the binder. He explains to me why Ashley's call was so great. And then I sign it. And then I make some comments. And then I show it off to the audience in the Oval Office and look at my big, beautiful signature, right? That's how it goes there, Mark.
Ashley's son stood on his principles.
Yes.
Was a good American. Went to the voting booth.
Yes. Yes, exactly right. It reminds me of what happened yesterday in the Oval Office when they made showers great again. Will Scharf, who ran for Attorney General here in Missouri, he lost to Andrew Bailey, who was the incumbent. He decided his backup option was going to be White House secretary. So Will Scharf, a lot of people are not going to know his name, but he's the guy who always stands next to Trump when he's about to sign an executive order. He's kind of like he's like the paper boy or something. He's just standing there. He's collecting the signatures and explaining to Trump what he's about to sign. And then Trump has some commentary. Cameras are rolling and the whole deal. It's not a bad backup plan. If you can't be the attorney general for Missouri, you get to be the secretary of the president of the United States. Pretty good. So yesterday they announced through executive order that they were going to make showers great again by rolling back some of the limitations on how many gallons of water could come out of your shower head on a per minute basis that Obama started, Trump eased up on, Biden reinstituted, and now Trump is pulling back on. And here's what it sounded like. The first voice you hear is Missouri's own Will Scharf on making showers great again. Here we go.
The Biden administration launched what you called a war on showers. They had certain regulations that basically killed the water pressure of showers and other water appliances.
You can say it. Go ahead. What are the appliances?
I mean, it's everything, sir.
Sinks and
dishwashers, toilets, sinks. But the shower heads are a
There's
huge
no
deal.
water. You don't get water. It's ridiculous.
So with this executive order, we're effectively going to be reversing that set of regulations to ensure that Americans have choice in the consumer market. If they want a low-flow shower head, they can buy one. If they want a real deal shower head, they should have the ability to.
You buy a new house, you pay a lot of money, and the developers, you're not allowed to do anything more. They put restrictors on. They used to have a restrictor where you could take it out, but now they weld it in. And you take a shower or wash your hands, whatever you do, including dishwashers when no water comes out. But you wash your hands, and in my case, I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair. I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes till it gets wet. It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was real. That was a moment in the Oval Office yesterday. Trump taking care of his beautiful hair. And Will Scharf standing there explaining to the president why this is an imperative executive order that must be signed into law immediately. And I'm here for it, man. I'm here for making showers great again.
2 claps and a Ric Flair.
There you go. Give me that nice, hard-flowing shower head. That's what I want. None of this like drip, 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 as Trump called it. Give me the real deal, okay? Can't do a drip, drip, drip in the shower. I need that thing on full blast. And if it hurts a little bit, I'm okay with that. I'd rather that than the drip, drip, drip. But we're getting back to making showers great again. We're getting back to making America great again. And man, it is welcomed. I will just say that much. Tell me you guys aren't soft shower guys in there. I don't want any soft shower guys on the show.
No, hard shower here. Keatsman's here.
I got 3 pages on this today.
3 pages?
I love my shower so much.
Oh, 3
He's making
pages.
showers great again on
He
the Uncanceled
He
show.
didn't answer the question, though. Is he a soft shower guy or a hard shower
absolutely
guy?
not.
Okay.
Who is a soft shower guy? That's not Tim Walz?
I
mean, that's it. This
Yes.
thing started in 1992.
Yeah.
1992.
George H.W. had it first.
I've been saying for years that if you take a slow shower, you use more water. You're in there twice as long.
Ooh.
There are studies that prove this.
That's
The hot, fast shower is better. It saves water.
There you go. All right. Little tease for Uncanceled today,
And I
John.
can vouch for the president. Getting your hair wet in a light shower takes forever. The struggle is real, brother.
Well, you got the best hair of anybody in the building, man. So that
I got that going for me.
You do have that going for you. I'm just trying to hang on here. I got the Rogaine, I got the Propecia, and I'm hanging on. I'm hanging on.
He's got pretty full head of hair too.
Oh yeah,
he's got the beard and the whole deal.
Here's the thing, though. He's like a 22-year-old engineer.
Oh, okay.
You know, you're now senior citizen level, and you got your head of hair. So that's much more impressive than the 22-year-old. Jacob
Fact
could be
check,
bald.
26-year-old.
Oh, he's 26. Okay. All right. Fine. Sorry, Jacob. My apologies.
Yep. Well, that's true. At
Yeah.
65, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, you're doing great, man. And Jacob's doing great, too, except for that time he had to drive out to Abilene, Kansas at 2 a.m. because I was missing a microphone for my remote at the Eisenhower Memorial there. So he's doing great work, though.
At that point, yeah, Jacob could have pulled out all of his hair, huh?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, he could have. I'll never forget the look on his face. Monster Energy, 3 a.m. Driving out to Abilene for a microphone drop-off. Oof, boy, that's a look you never forget. And I guarantee you he'll never make that mistake again. But he's a hard worker, man. He's hustling in there. He's helping those guys out right now. We'll wrap it up. Kevin Keesman Uncanceled is coming up next at 10 o'clock on 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And I will wrap it up with this. How do you explain something when it comes to death to a little kid? What do you tell them? I struggled with it, and I'll share it with you on 95.7 FM. Hello, friends. How's my Jim Nance? Not as good as Jim. He's got a softer voice than me. So, good morning. 9:51. We got a few more minutes left on the show. Speaking of the Eisenhower Museum trip that we took last year for D-Day, just talking about our buddy Jacob in there, engineer who had to run me out of microphone at 3 a.m. because I was short one. As a caller just noted to John Anthony, the famous Eisenhower tree from Augusta that was lost in a 2014 ice storm is now in the Eisenhower Library. A piece of that tree is in the library. So as the story goes, I would play at Augusta, and obviously he loved it. Who doesn't love going down there? Keatsman's been down there a few times. I've been fortunate enough to go down twice in 2009 and then again in the 2016 Masters. I was down there. So there's a piece of this Eisenhower tree that now resides at the Eisenhower Library in Abilene. And when I got the tour last year, I remember seeing it there. It's a big old tree, and there's a big piece of it there in the library. So it's pretty cool stuff. As the Masters gets underway this morning, Parlay Van Sickle in there is already telling us about his little $2 bets to win 1,000 that he's putting out there, and he's already losing money left and right. So hang tight there, Mark. It's a long week ahead, okay, buddy?
Got to be careful with these 4-day tournaments.
You do. What are you trying to make some money on in there, fella?
Oh, man. Well, I tried to do a first hole birdie for Spieth and Scheffler. Spieth got the birdie. Scheffler just parred the opening hole. He did just birdie the second hole, though.
Oh, that second's a nice little par 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Very good. Nice job. Keep trying. Give us a good parlay for buy, sell, hold tomorrow, okay?
All right. Okay.
All right. Get on that for me. There you go. They're underway in Augusta, Georgia this morning. Now, to wrap it up, I was driving down to soccer practice yesterday, as the old assistant coach, trying to finish up and keep the undefeated streak going at 3-0. 2-0. Sorry, 2-0. Going back to last year. Interim coach for one game, assistant coach for one game 2 weeks ago. We got canceled last Saturday because of that weather, which I'm glad we did. I don't think the girls would have performed well in the cold wind of last Saturday morning.
Oh, a soggy pitch slows things down.
I don't think coach would have been in the right frame of mind either,
Yeah.
So that game was canceled. So we're driving down to soccer practice yesterday, and if you know the Olathe area, there's a graveyard there on Northgate, driving down to 135th. And it's on the east side of the road. And, it's Claire and I going, and she looks at me and she goes, Dad, what are all those statues over there? I'm like, well, it's a cemetery. It's where there's, people who are buried. So they're all dead in there. Like, yeah, it's, everyone in there has a statue and they've died, or, it's a family thing, and, there's multiple family members buried there. And she's like, okay. So she asks if her great-grandfather, who passed away a couple of years ago, is in there, Kate's grandpa. And I said, no, he's not in that one. She goes, where is he? I said, well, he's actually not in a cemetery. He got cremated. And that is where I royally screwed up. I could have easily just said, oh, he's, back east with my wife's grandmother, and, that's where he is. But you know what? You give too many answers and you give too much detail to a 6-year-old, and you only get more questions. That's what happens.
You got to watch it, Coach.
I know. The ride's just a little too long. I'm like, yeah, how about those Royals? Can we get to this game?
Next thing you know, you bummed out the goalkeepers. You're just sitting there in the goal.
I know.
Missing them, not even moving.
I
What's
know.
it all worth, Coach? What's it all for?
What's any of this mean? So I'm like, well, it's kind of when they turn their body into dust, so that way her great-grandmother can have her 60-year husband in her home and in her life, cremated. She goes, well, how do they turn them to dust? I'm like, that's a great question. I don't really know the answer, to be honest. Well, only God can turn people into dust. I'm like, well, that is true. That is very true. It's a very good point. So, I got to do some research on this. And in the meantime, let's work on some passes tonight and have a great practice. Let's go, kids. Come on. Let's go. No more talk about cremating.
You need to come up with the magic wand. There's a wand that takes care of things that you don't want to explain. You know? Just wave the wand.
I got to figure out something like that because that was not going in the right direction last night. And I'm, white knuckling it down 135th, trying to get to practice blowing through a yellow light because I'm like, this conversation has got to end soon.
Now, realize when they say, well, where's the wand come from? You just go to the internet. And that usually fixes it. Internet.
Dad's phone. It's fine. It is what it is. Oh, and with that, we are done on a Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, kids and death is hard. Where did grandma go? Best I could do was God wanted her to be with him. She's up in heaven. She's happy. Works for me because it will still cover the question as they get older. That's a great point.
Excellent.
I love that. It was my fault going down the road of trying to explain what cremating is all about. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, you did that once.
Yep. See you tomorrow.